topics today. We're going to get into the meat of things and why you're here in just a little bit for the top 5 reasons to consider cloud for your contact center. We're going to start with a little introduction and a little background with Arrow and Five9 and how our relationship came to be. We'll define the cloud a little bit just to make sure we're all on the same page, and then we'll briefly discuss some of the trends that I suspect most of you are all becoming very familiar with around both a customer and technology perspective that are really driving a contact center and driving specifically contact center as a service out into the market. So let's go ahead with that and jump into things. So here at ArrowSi, we're a global integrator and solution provider from a multi-vendor perspective in offering communications, collaboration, contact center software, and consulting services, and we're delivering those in a number of different models. Cloud perspective is really been of offerings, and then hosted in managed solutions are another means of delivery there. As we looked at our solutions in place and did some evaluations, actually it was the latter part of 2016 and in early 2017, we realized that we needed to make some updates to our portfolio. So we did some reviews. We started looking a little bit at what some of the market analysis had for contact center as a service. So with that, we looked at Gartner, looked at Forrester, did some review then of the top providers in the space. And ultimately, we decided to align forces with Five9 for a couple key reasons. One, and you'll see these components kind of listed across the bottom of the slide here. Five9 is 100% cloud, born in the cloud, and is also 100% organic. So, meaning not by way of acquisition-based solutions. Everything was built with cloud purpose and built by Five9. I'll ask my co-host Chris if you have anything to add. Obviously, I won't read straight through the quick facts, but you can see that as well.
Yeah, and so as you can tell, we've been doing this for a long time, and we started with the idea when we peeled off from a major on-premise contact center provider and said, how can we make this easier? And this is back in 2001, with the idea, well, if we can serve it, over the internet, and also make all the components a lot easier, we can deliver a better and easier to use contact center experience. The reality is it took a while. If you look actually at the growth starting in 2009, things really have started to take off. So it took us a while to grow it. But the good news is we've, over those years, we've learned so much of how to take care of our customers, to how to run, a really robust contact center as a service solution. And the end result of that is kind of some of those quick facts that you see. We've got a remarkable number of customers. We're supporting an incredible number of interactions. None of that's particularly easy, but we've really figured it out. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through. But it's been great. And the other thing that it's been great to grow through all this, but it's been the learning components have actually put us in a place where it's remarkably defendable. You can't just spin up a cloud contact center. Five9's learned to put massive quantities of infrastructure in place so that our customers have a great experience, and again, our goal is always a little bit better than on-premise, take away the headaches and make it a lot easier. And the fact that we've been growing like this is really proving our model. Back to you, Mark.
Well, and that great experience, I think, leads to what the analysts are saying, right? And stating, very clearly that Five9's ability to execute is the best the best of the best, right? It's been leading in the market for the last 2-3 years, and I'm a trustable person. I'd love to say as Chris and I were speaking here and sharing the great benefits of Five9 and Arrow, that you can trust us in what we're saying. But we figured, hey, why not look out to some of the analysts, see what they're saying, as well as some of the larger enterprises, and hear what they're saying and how they feel truly about Five9 in the market. And, Chris, if you have anything to share, and I think we may have a little bit of insight to the soon to be released 2017 quadrant, as Magic Quadrant as well from Gartner.
Yeah, and it's only going to get better. I guess that's what I can say. And we're actually pretty proud of this, in that where can we apply science to the delivery and execution of setting up a contact center, especially as a cloud. And again, those years of practice have taught us an awful lot about how to actually make happy customers. Our goals are first and foremost to make those customers happy with our solution, but secondly, to do it within the timeframes that they need. And the nice part about the contact center is we're able, as a service, we're able to do that a lot faster. And again, we'll cover that a little bit later. The other part of this, though, and I'd love to say it's all science, but Five9, a lot of this is born out of the Five9 culture, customer first culture. We really have a really nice, the people here, even though the company's grown and I've been with it for pretty much the whole time, we've been able to maintain a real culture of people helping each other within the company. And that translates into actually great execution and happy customers, because they kind of feel that same thing, like people actually doing the deployments, implementations, and supporting the application really care about them. So,
let's take a look
of
at
all
some
the things,
of those,
it's a great place to be.
some of those customers. Yeah.
Thanks.
So as we look at some of the customers that Five9 has aligned with, and many of these are Arrow customers as well. The interesting thing is as we looked across our organizations when we were doing the initial reviews and having discussions about our alignment, is we realized that Five9 was in and aligned with a number of large enterprises that Arrow was already aligned with, but didn't realize it, and kind of the same from Five9's to Arrow. So with that, we realized that there's alignment, and there's solutions that that may solve certain business unit issues that may not be able to be serviced by a current on-prem solution. Not that on-prem solution is bad or not performing as it needs to be, but the ability to expand it to address a specific business case could become challenging from a number of different perspectives. Could be just cost factors and timelines to be able to get the new solutions in place. So that's where we found out again that there was quite a bit of overlap between our businesses in our alignment within a number of different enterprise customers.
It's great. And I think those logos just say this is like contact center as a service is here. The major companies are adopting it, and actually with a partnership with Arrow, it helps us actually deal with the complexity that those enterprises actually bring, so we can come in together and offer really dynamic solutions.
Yeah, that's a great point. So we're going to start with a little bit of a level set to make sure we're all on the same page here around the definition of the cloud, what it means, and then we'll kind of see where everybody's at in in respects of adoption of the cloud. So when I look to define the cloud, there's a number of definitions out there, right? Obviously, Google is our best friend these days if we need to get a market's view of definitions. I often refer to an organization called a NIST, which is a National Institute of Standards and Technology. They provide real solid detail and alignment from a computer science perspective. So, first and foremost, cloud computing really has kind of three main components. One is the characteristics. We'll take a brief look at those. And then there's deployment models and service models that follow into this as well. So as I look at cloud computing and what it has to have, and what needs to be in place: on-demand self-service, broad network access, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, and measured service, right? So broad network access, for example, being able to gain access to the cloud in a number of different ways. Resource pooling, taking advantage of technologies and capabilities such as build outs in maybe looking forward a little bit, Google or Amazon, and leveraging resources and pooling those resources together across multiple environments. The rapid elasticity is key to being able to make quick deployments, quick and easy deployments, or quick and easy additions to environments, and then ultimately you have to be able to measure that and monitor that as a really as a billable component, but as a reliability component as well. And Chris, as you look at 5.9, how would you say 5.9 stacks up to being able to adhere to these five characteristics?
In a lot of ways, we've grown into this. So over the years, we've learned. I think, 12 years ago, I think I was at a trade show and someone asked me what the cloud was, and at that time, I think my answer was, well, behind the covers, it's just a bunch of servers running in a data center. That's really no longer the case. And when you start considering, all the nuances of an on-premise deployment, the security, the connectivity, the redundancy, the ability to, and then try to extend and add on cloud features, it's really much more than that. So it's all these things. I always add security in there, because as we've gone to the enterprise, and we become an extension of their environment, the security and connectivity pieces actually are now in the forefront along with the functionalities, making sure that we fit into their technical requirements for both how they're going to connect for quality of service and also maintaining their existing security, PCI, et cetera. So it's more complicated now. As it's become more mainstream, we have to deliver on all these features.
Yeah, that's certainly a critical component as we talk about security. And we don't talk a ton about security in our discussion here today, but I want everybody to certainly know that security is on the top of our minds, and as we look at solutions for our customers, we're certainly going through an extensive review to make sure there's comfort levels and understandings around how we're bringing security to your environment. So we've captured these five characteristics. There's deployment models, which I'm not going to get too deep into, but the different ways of accessing the cloud, be it a private connection, be it a community or public connection, or even a hybrid of both. You'll see that as we share a little bit later, you'll see that all of the options for deployment models are available in ways to access the 5.9 cloud solution. So with the definition kind of clearly out there and understanding it, we'd like to get a little bit of capture of the audience to see where you feel you're at today from an adoption in the use of cloud, specifically for contact center, in that respect. Kelly, if you could be so kind as to launch into our first question, and then we'll take a look at the at the poll results. Just give it just a second here to collect the responses, and we'll display that information for you. We can probably go ahead and wrap it up, Kelly, and take a look at the results, and kind of as well, it's kind of interesting. I see 90% of us are not at all in the cloud from a perspective of contact center. I suspect that's a number of different reasons, and very likely, means we're currently living in a premise-based solution. As we look forward, as we look at some of the market drivers as to what's leading to cloud contact center, I think you'll find the information very relevant in how a cloud contact center can play into your environment. So, all right, let's continue through here. So before we get into the actual specifics around 5 key reasons, we're gonna talk a little bit about the trends and driving the change, right? And we're gonna define the modern consumer, and I'm not just going to peg this and call out that it's the world of the millennials that are driving this, because I think the reality is we're all consumers. For whatever right or wrong reason, I think as we get a little older in our lives, we maybe get a little less patient. Okay, maybe I'm speaking about myself. I don't want to wait as long on hold or in a voice queue when I know that there's other means of access to the contact center that I'm in the information that I may be trying to gain access to, but I may still find a roadblock there, even if I go online and establish a search on a website. I may engage in a chat, and that's my own lack of patience that's kind of driving that type of model, and driving the use of more digital channels, right? And the fact that technology is evolving at a faster pace than really what businesses, I think, can keep up with from a technology perspective and managing those technologies is very much pushing us to look at how we're handling the contacts, how we're servicing our clients and our customers in the marketplace today. Chris, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well around the today's consumers and what you're seeing in the market.
I dropped off for a second. I had a little audio on my side, but the way I look at this is, and I was thinking what you and I talked about with the concept of millennials and stuff, but I think everybody wants something consistent. And what's changed is the way they can engage and interact. There's more options, but they still want consistency across all those levels. And I want that too, and I'm not quite, I'm a little older than an average millennial. My kids want it, so I think that's really normal. And I think the other thing is that customers are smarter. And I was thinking this, Mark, we didn't talk about it in their pre-calls, but I kind of think, well, we have the data. We know they called, we know they sent an email, we know they sent a chat, we know they sent an SMS message. We have the data. And so it's not unusual for a customer or consumer to expect us to know that those other interactions took place and what happened in those interactions. They know too. We're smarter consumers. So really, it's a challenge for us in the contact center world to make sure we're addressing these expectations. It's also an opportunity because, like I said, we have the data. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, it certainly is, and a little bit closer look at the digital transition, right, and the use of digital channels over over the traditional, telephony. Now, I'll raise my hand and be the first to say that voice interactions are not going away. They may not even shrink, but other digital channels such as email, chat, SMS are certainly going to grow, and it's going to be critical to manage all of those interactions from a single engine, which is where the challenge with a lot of today's contact center technology deployments that are in place starts to become a reality, and refreshes start to kind of boil to the top of how do we make this happen in an economical manner. So again, you can see some stats here from over the course of years in how the shift from telephony a little bit, but not much, is certainly moving toward additional channels, and video in the contact center from the right for the right reasons and the right interactions is also something I know that Chris and the 5.9 team is seeing some pretty significant growth, or at least it's coming up very, very often in discussions as to how it can be handled. So as I mentioned, the drive of that movement in increase in digital channel use is putting some pressure on today's business technology to keep up, and then for businesses to be able to manage those, right? So what happens then? A business has to look at sometimes an entire technology refresh in order to bring those solutions, the new digital solutions forward, and that presents can oftentimes present a pretty significant cost and a significant challenge, which is where we start looking at how we can potentially overlay and weave in a cloud-based solution to care for the business need to bring in that omni-channel experience and manage those digital channels along with voice. Chris, as you look at the ability of 5.9s to play into that existing legacy on-premise space, I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear how you typically address the technology refresh.
So that's usually it's going to be some of the more advanced technology that's aging out or being end of life. And I kind of look at the crisis. The definition of crisis is time of great danger and a time of great opportunity. And the opportunity is to take advantage of these new technologies that are designed to offer more yet simplify at the same time and make integrations a lot easier. So we try to come in and do two things. We want to expand the current functionality, but we also want to kind of play nice with what's already there. If we walk into an enterprise that has 5,000 existing phones on the desktop, we don't always want to bring in a forklift thing. No, let's address the complexity of the contact center and play nice and transfer calls back and forth with the existing UC infrastructure. That's something we do. So we want to go in and design a solution, but also make sure we're taking that customer to the next level in regards to both the new digital channels, as well as say other things, even like you have here on the CRM side, easier integrations.
Chris, you mentioned something that I find interesting, and it's the you mentioned UC, right? So a lot of the premise-based systems that are out there are managing both UC and CC, and are you seeing, how are you seeing that happen or handled? Are you seeing a separation there? I'm curious to know what you're seeing and how you're handling that.
We're seeing it, and we're seeing that there's, for lack of a better term, there's some religion around UC, and we can't come in and necessarily force that customer. Well, we're the contact center vendor. You've got 350 seats of contact center and 2,500 UC. Who's the gorilla in that argument? So what we want to do is play nice with what's in there. And UC actually does have a place even within our environment. So we try to do integrations to that. So for example, mostly so interactions or calls can be sent back and forth, or so the contact center agent can chat with someone out there who's maybe a subject matter expert outside of the contact center. So we're trying to be as open as we can to the UC applications out there. At the same time, we are endeavoring to build, off-the-shelf integrations with major UC partners as well. This is an ongoing project with us as we try to roll out to the big vendors out. In addition to that, there'll be APIs to make it easy as well. So, you can see state control across the whole UC environment right through the contact center.
Yeah, I know I'm seeing a number of businesses with significantly sized premise-based systems that are servicing both UC and CC, moving those UC users off to another solution, but maintaining the contact center. But they're still challenged with that contact center technology refresh and trying to determine how they add in digital management and digital capabilities to that solution. So it still ends up being a fairly significant cost factor to manage that on-premise system when they, I think, could pretty easily make that move to a cloud contact center and save time, money, and resource expense. So as we kind of understand the movement of digital engagement, let's take a look at how everybody's managing contacts today with their solutions. So in the first question, we definitely identified that the majority of those of you on the call are not leveraging cloud-based contact center solutions. So I'd like to see what your world looks like from a digital engagement perspective, and identify what types of interactions you currently have with your customers, and please check all the boxes and all the options as you're making your selection here, if you could. Kelly, if you can launch on our poll, that would be phenomenal. I'm definitely seeing a mix across the board here of channels in use. Voice and email are out of the gate as leaders for sure. Give it just another second here, and then we can probably close it out. Looks like most everybody's voted. Cool. So thank you. I've actually got a really good mix of use of interactions. Obviously, as we mentioned, voice is 93% of the respondents are managing voice calls. 93% as well email. So that's the same. Quite a few greater than 50%, 64% web chat, and we have a fair amount of adoption of text and even video. A decent play of video as well. So you'll be glad to know that the solution set and some of the key features and deliveries functions of the 5.9 solution will clearly address all of the channels and bring that together. Bring that together in a nice omni-channel experience for the agent. So now, kind of what you've been waiting for is the top 5 reasons that we've identified to consider and make that move to contact center service. And we'll review each of these with a little bit of detail individually, and share some case studies, some customer studies as to where we've been successful in leveraging the features and integrations and financial benefits to businesses. So first is we're going to get into is some the next generation features and functionality, right? Making sure we're addressing the digital age. We'll look at the rapid deployment in ease of deployment, along with business resiliency. A lot of businesses are tasked with adding some disaster recovery environments and data centers to their current infrastructure. We'll talk a little bit about how we can do that. We'll touch on the financial flexibilities of the solution, and then everything is great unless you can actually integrate. And with Five9 solution, we've got some great options for integrating and enabling applications. So starting with that digital age focus, Chris, maybe you can tell us a little bit how Five9 is solutions are handling that digital trend that we're seeing and managing the overall interactions.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people have a slide similar to this, or at least an idea of this in their head, where a customer needs help on the left-hand side, and we need to get them to the right agent on the right-hand side. And where things have dramatically changed is it's no longer an agent sitting off of an ACB somewhere. Also, it's not a phone call. So of all these different types of interactions, and now our agents, maybe segregated out into work-at-home agents, outsourcers. You've got experts out there that only take maybe a certain subset of calls, et cetera. So everything on both sides has gotten a little bit more complicated. And then on top of that, customers are looking for one version of the truth for all this data in the interactions, and that's what you kind of see at the bottom of the screen in integrations. So your, what I like to call it, customer database, whatever it might be, probably needs to know that your customer had a chat interaction or sent an email in or had a phone call where a case was created and escalated. They need to know that. And really, this is what we've been able to bring together in kind of a unique and simplified approach, as we'll cover in a moment. But these were the complex challenges that we faced and that we've been able to address and actually make it a little easier. And they were remarkably hard to address, though, when we think about like on-premise equipment. In order to build all these things out or add all these modules on, they became what I used to refer to as the glom. Well, you started with an ACD, then you glommed on an IVR, then you glommed on some kind of chat widget, then you glommed on an email server, and really disparate systems. And earlier you heard Mark mention that Five9 did this organically. That's made it a lot easier, as there's not a lot of gloms. So we're able to keep things really simple for the agent, simple for the customers, but also be able to talk to those third-party integrations and also deliver that high-level contact center management piece of the workforce optimization, easy reporting, supervisory functionality, et cetera.
Well, and yeah, Chris, you mentioned the customer interaction and the importance as well, and I'm glad you pointed out the importance of the agent interaction. I really, personally, I like the modern interface that Five9 has for today's agent, and this is where I'll say today's agent in many ways is the millennial group, right? And their expectations are high, right? They have a whole lot of technology in their hands and a lot of very cool technology. And if I put a yesteryear's desktop in front of them, they're going to get bored pretty quick. So I like this, and maybe real briefly, we don't have to get into all the details, but you can kind of give us a little overview here of what we're seeing as the agent interface.
And that's a good point. Like I have an 18-year-old son. I think I could put this interface in front of him and he'd be fine, and that'd be good. And then versus some of the old stuff that we used to work with, the CPI and icons everywhere. But what we try to do is do a layout that's you can learn but do everything with. And one of the things on the left-hand side toolbar is you'll see all your different interaction types over in the dark left-hand toolbar. We're currently in the chat interaction. And what we do is we actually treat the text channels, email, social, chat, SMS, kind of all with the same user interface because they're all text. Some are synchronous, some are asynchronous, some are a new thing I'm calling semi-asynchronous, such as SMS. But we're going to let an agent handle those all the same way. But the really important thing that you're seeing on the main street is when we deliver the interaction to the agent, we want to let that agent know, hey, if you look at this history right in front of you, you can see actually there was a phone call, there was a chat session, there was a web visit. Yes, we can actually see what the customer is doing on the website as well. And we want to not just show the agent that information, we have to display it something they can get really quickly. And in this chat, I don't have time to do a bunch of research on what do they do on the website. So we try to give them a picture of that customer's experience they can, kind of glean some context out of in 5 or 10 seconds, as well as using that same data for what's the customer sentiment, what are they feeling, and wrap it all up into one, nice, easy to use UI. This has been a tremendous success for us. Customers like say, yeah, I got my agents running. It's kind of just put it in front of them, talk to them for 20 minutes, ran some test calls. Of course, it's a training component of the system, and boom, they're off and running.
That's great. That's great. Would love to share more around that if we had time. But we're going to move on to the next key reason on our list here. So rapid deployment and lower barriers, right? So as you know, an on-premise refresh is not a small undertaking, as depicted here on the left side, right? I mean, if we have multiple components and we're managing multiple interactions, it's going to be pretty significant to get an ACD dialer, IVR, get endpoints updated, get the core system updated, maybe extend that out to a second data center. Chris, this looks pretty simple on the right-hand side here, but I challenged you a little bit initially, and through some conversation, you said, no, Mark, really it is just this simple, and it does allow us to have some very rapid initial deployment and then rapid and easy additions to the environment. So
you got it, Mark. It's nice to put up a slide that shows something that easy. And in fact, a lot of our customers deploy using this method where they're going to log in through a browser and they're going to configure things. So, they're going to take their toll-free number, put some routing rules around it, pick an agent, groups of agents they're going to target based on the flows, have the agents log in over their browser, and boom, they're taking calls. It is that straightforward, of course. But looking at some of the people on the call, my guess is they're probably saying, well, wait a second, connecting me over the internet. So while it's that easy, we actually will give our customers a lot of options. And this slide speaks to that a little bit in that, we can get customers up and running in less than a month. It's totally doable. But that connectivity piece actually, we will often start them just over the public internet, where, of course, there's a risk of quality of service, and then deploy, say, an MPLS connection later on, which is another big piece of it. And that's, and our enterprise customers are more falling in that world where we're going to put some kind of private connection between Five9 and their agents, or run a hybrid. But what's really interesting is everything's already there. Like Mark and I talked about this. When you sign up, within usually 24 to 48 hours, we've got your toll-free numbers all set up. Depending on the REST port, of course, but for new ones, they're just there. And you log in, and everything's just there. All the functionality is there, and you're ready to go. Really, the big piece that Mark and I talked about were, there's the training and the configuration and the training, really, and the coordination with the customer staff, et cetera, that takes the most time. And bigger multi-site rollouts certainly will take a little bit longer, but we can do this remarkably quick, and we have processes around that we know are now successful, as proved out by the Gartner slides.
I think we have an example here of a deployment that you'd had with a major bank, and they had a very short turnaround, a very short need for outbound capabilities, right? And the ability for Five9 to, it's already stood up, right? It's a matter of getting the connection between the cloud and the premise, and that was a critical factor for this bank. And as you'd mentioned, Chris, started with this secure connection, but then as there was growth and a need to manage the bandwidth and quality of service a little bit tighter between the premise and the cloud, the addition of MPLS allowed for that to take place.
And also we're able to continue to enable hybrids. You're not dedicated just to MPLS. You can run MPLS to the main office, but you've got a 5-person satellite, we can establish a secure connection there without MPLS. Yeah, there's a little quality service risk, but that flexibility is there.
Awesome. Let's take a look at the next reason here, business resiliency. As I know I've experienced, many businesses are asking or being asked by by their CTO, hey, what's our resiliency that we have in place today? And there's a lot of systems that are in place that are high availability, but not necessarily geo-redundant, which is becoming more and more critical as we're seeing Mother Nature's uptick in significant issues that she's throwing at us. So, let's look through this a little bit. And if I was looking at a cloud solution, I'd want to make sure that there was certainly a level of geo-redundancy and global footprint for my global business, should I be in that space, to support my cloud contact center.
The interesting thing here is, deploying this in an on-premise world is nearly impossible or terribly expensive. And so, from the get-go, we've laid out geo-redundant environments where, we've got a primary and a backup both domestically and in Europe and actually across the globe, as you'll see in the next slide, just to make it easy. And again, as Mark said earlier, you sign up and you just get this. It's just there. That functionality is there. And then when we go global, we're going to do a little more design work, but the idea of holding calls at the edge out there in those other countries, and then asking the main brain a question, whichever data center that main brain may be at, it's all there. This also helps us, scale the solution. It helps us address in-country requirements as we go global, and keep the agents and the calls in that country, and all those relationships with the carriers, etc. It's just all done. You sign up and it's all there. For us, it's really just a matter of design.
Well, and something with the multiple carriers, that you shared, Chris, that was interesting is the way Five9 uses RESTport. So you actually own the number and can distribute that across multiple carriers. You speak to that a little bit if you could, because I find that to be a competitive advantage over the other CAS providers, CCAS providers.
It is. Or on-prem, like I've got AT&T and the backhoe pulls up my AT&T fiber. What do? Well, Five9 out of the box has got failover to Verizon, level 3 to other, actually something like 19 carriers, all again right there. So for a customer to do that on their own is nearly impossible. And then our relationships with these carriers, really do put us at an advantage over anybody else out there. And then our customer, maybe they only have 50 seats, gets all this super high-end enterprise redundancy, failover, and multiple carrier options. And that also, of course, goes for the data side of things as well, all the way down to an MPLS connection that can fail over between carriers. We extend it that far.
That's awesome. So number 4 on our list is around financial flexibility and financial capabilities. Clearly, probably the first thing that comes to mind for most when thinking about a cloud solution is OpEx versus CapEx. So we're not having, we're using operational dollars on a month-to-month basis versus a significant multi-million-dollar, capital expense outlay. And that certainly is the case here. We're leveraging that OpEx with lower upfront costs and other inclusions, right? And Chris, as you look at Five9, and we look at what's included in the overall agent seat pricing. Let's talk about that a little bit, and what it includes. And I think we have an example after this as well of where some flexibilities come into play from a seasonal perspective as well.
Yeah. Again, we can, if the let's make the technology easier to use, but also make it easier to purchase and own, or in this case, subscribe to. So it's already been proven out many times over, and we also help our customers with advanced ROI, that it's going to cost less money, definitely in the long run. And you're always going to be on the and talk about no maintenance, you're always on the latest version. There's no concept of those major upgrades, which we've all been suffered through. But then on top of that, the fact that everything's pre-built, the upfront costs have to be lower. We don't have to sit around and bring in servers and pull trunks, et cetera, or set up zip trunks, whatever it might be today. None of that is necessary. It's just there. Okay, let's start a configuration and training, and we're ready to go. And then because we have that flexibility, go ahead, we'll actually move on to the next slide, but we'll talk about that scalability concept.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, and I was going to reference to those upfront costs. You know, a lot of times come around our last topic that we'll get to here in just last reason here we'll get to in just a second. But it's the integration points where most of those upfront costs are identified, and that's becoming easier as well. But before we get to that, I want you to touch on the burstability, right?
And it's we can do this. So imagine this is such a no-brainer for an on-premise like this particular customer would have had to have roughly 250 on-premise seat licenses, and with us for most of the year they just have 30. Their costs, the savings were staggering, and this is something that we can do. That we do for a ton of customers. And again, we design a solution that fits their needs. We prepare it ahead of time, but that concept of going up and down based on what you need. And, last Thursday, and I think this happened last time, Mark and I actually did a webinar, we did get a call. We do a lot of the outsourcers who do nonprofit work. So in this case was, for example, raising money for Puerto Rico. So, okay, I need 2,000 lines and 500 agents set up in 2 days. Boom, we can do that, and it's quite remarkable. But for the average enterprise, they know what their volumes are going to be, and if there's major fluctuations, we fit right. Back to you, Mark.
Yeah, and that's I'm seeing that burst in increase up and down being a business requirement more and more. Definitely in healthcare. And healthcare payers as they're setting up for open enrollment here in the next next couple months, and have a window of 30, 60, sometimes even 90 days of one getting onto the plan and figuring out which plan to take, and then once I've done that, I'm still calling in and asking about how my plan works now, what my options are. So there's a good 90-day window, but that's an increase of oftentimes a few hundred agents that then drops down after that.
Actually, Mark, our largest customer scales up into several thousand from a baseline of 600, 800 for those, and we have several customers in that exact world.
That's great. So the last key reason on the list, but often the most critical component of an overall solution is the application integration. And Chris, I'm going to kind of let you take us through the application integration in APIs that Five9 has built out, and the technology partners that you've aligned with, which again matches very closely to Arrow aligned partners and partnerships in the industry to really round out the overall Five9 solution and really bring these into a customer's environment and make them work with all of those back office systems.
Yeah, and I think and that's where I'm calling one version of the truth, which for all of us on this call is a big database. But we're not coming in and saying, well, we want to be that database. Put all your data in Five9. But we do have a lot. We know about your chats, your chat transcripts, your email transcripts, your phone calls, the recordings of those phone calls, the length of the phone calls, the agent performance. We have a ton of data. Remember earlier, we have the data. But our view of this is you have some kind of data warehouse, CRM, whatever you want to call that one version of the truth at site. And what we want to do is share that data with those applications. So you've got other things going on. A customer placed an order, okay, maybe online. That's in that system. And now all these types of things actually are being blended together, but in your system, in your world. So Five9 developed the APIs to really easily take that data and not only, for example, screen pop in your homegrown CRM, or one of the ones we'll talk about in a moment, but also to write that data back into it so you can maintain a history of those interactions in your third-party application. Why don't we take a quick look at some of those apps, actually? Yeah, so, you know, on the left, what we're seeing actually is really the most popular customer relationship platforms. And what we've done actually is developed really out-of-the-box integrations that do what you'd expect from the screen pop, click to call, the IVR database dips, and of course, recording of interactions in those apps. And as we stretch it out, we're doing the same thing with actually out-of-the-box integrations with Calabrio and Verint. Remember, setting all that stuff up, it's actually all done for you. That's the primary one of those benefits we talked about. It's just done. So, oh yeah, you know, I want to. We want to actually add Calabrio's quality management. Oh, there you go. It's all plug and play and ready to go. You know, same thing with Verint. Our servers actually live next to the Five9 servers. They're all right there in our data centers. And then some of the other vendors we've done to extend out the Five9 functionality for analysis, for example, for the Telemarketing Protection Act, DNC, video, and of course, you know, some kinds of text, some outbound texting via partner app for broadcasting. So we've really extended that whole concept out. And all these are straightforward thanks to those APIs that we've pre-built.
And I think we've got a highlight here of a pharmaceutical company that was integration with Salesforce. And
yeah, so this one.
Go ahead.
This was an interesting project. It was a concierge type of where when a request comes in, you know, before the request is actually routed, it was talking to Salesforce in what we call our engagement workflow. It's kind of a combination of IVR, ACD, and saying, Salesforce, you know, do you have a match for this phone number? If so, who? And then who is the concierge that typically works with that? And now check if they're available. And then it kept going and saying, oh, if they're not available, who are the backup concierges for this? And it went all the way down, so it would screen pop something very specific around that customer within Salesforce, and then write the interaction. And they kept extending the functionality to where it actually sent SMS messaging out automatically as well. For example, a reminder to take your medication, things like that. It was a really interesting app, which when we presented to the customer, like, yeah, we need all that. How much does it cost? Well, this is what we do. It's more or less out of the box versus a tremendous amount of customization.
That's great. I noticed this started out as a subset and quickly grew.
Yeah.
Grew in size, right?
So I think I mentioned that all we have to do at Five9, and especially with our partnership with Arrow, we get together, the two of us as a vendor to the customer, we just have to do a good job, and it's going to grow. We kind of know that. We've proven that. We've seen it. And it's incentive to do a good job, too.
Yeah, there certainly is. You know, we bring the strength of our teams, our pre-sales teams, our engineering teams, our sales teams, and support teams, and align that with a cloud solution here, like Five9 could bring to the table, and it really is going to provide ultimately a benefit, I believe, to our customers and our clients.